she died immediately after Federation. So essentially he was your king for about 10 years. But a Masonic king, which meant he already had you under a different law, one that you don't know unless you're privy to that law. The Governor General Quentin Bryce. Look at Quentin. She's the Australian delegation to the United Nations Human Rights Commission, so she actually has a front door entrance to the UN. But look at the hubby, Knight of Justice of the Order of St John of Jerusalem. Always check the hubby. Is starting to wake up who's doing the number? Because if you don't do something, this number finishes in about 6 weeks and it'll be locked in tight. Now, I put that up there because all the Catholics would say, well, I knew all that Protestant stuff was all bad anyway. So I chucked him up there too. So we just sort of equal up the pendulum here. Now, what's the significance of that picture? Does anybody know the significance of the picture? I'll tell you what the significance is. At all times, they will call that St. Peter's Square. Does it look like a square to you? Well, what's the Duva in the centre for? Now, in Jeremiah 43, in the Old Testament, in a plain translation, it says, I will destroy the obelisk of Heliopolis. Now, that meant, because that's where that one come from, that meant that this whole structure was set up under Egyptian law, not any other law. But that's the one that runs the whole of the Catholic Church. And that's wherever that obelisk or an obelisk is, that is Freemasonry. I won't go to explain what it is and how it works and why it works, but that is Freemasonry. Can I give you a clearer picture? So here we've got who founded the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, like who put the first letter out to do it? It was the Vatican. Who founded the Knights Templars? First piece of paper put out, it was the Vatican. So the Vatican, and I'm not saying Jerusalem's not involved here, Jerusalem is involved. And what I'm doing here is spreading the pendulum out a bit so everybody says, well, I knew that all that English stuff was wrong anyway. I'm opening it up to a bigger front than that. Now that would look to be an innocuous type book. The book is called In God's Name. If you can't read those words immediately under it, what it says is an investigation into the murder of Pope John Paul I. That's fairly provocative on the front page. And it says by David Yallop. Now, why is that book important? First off, David was asked to come to Rome after the death of that Pope in 78 because they said this Pope didn't die of natural causes. Now, David spent 3 years in Rome before he wrote the book, or did the book. And the conclusion in the book is that when that Pope went to bed on the 33rd day, he went to bed at 9:30 at night. He had a list that he took to the bedroom of 121 men he was going to move out of the Vatican. Every man on the list was a Freemason. The nun found him 4:30 in the morning dead when she took the cup of tea. At 3:30 in the morning, the embalmers were already in the Vatican. It's all in David's book. That's why he says an investigation into the murder of Pope John Paul I. At the back of the book, he says, Holy City, if you wish to see me in court, this is my brief. That's why that's a very important book. Because it drives the trucks through Catholic stuff that says Freemasonry is not in our stuff. It's up to its eyeballs in it. That's the best book on just a straight up read in relation to it. It's called The Deadly Deception. Jim Shaw was a 33rd degree Freemason. And on the day that he was inducted to the lodge to be a 33rd, that is the day that he left Freemasonry. The very day he got inducted, he left Freemasonry and went on to write this book, co-authored by Tim McKinney. There's a very good balance in that book at the back of the book. It's a very difficult book to get hold of now because Jim Shaw is dead, Tom McKinney is still alive, and the average Christian bookshop won't hold it because they don't want to involve themselves with exposing Freemasonry. Now there's your Governor-General. You can't have clearer evidence than that. They come out of the Masonic Journal. Now at the time it says new Governor-General committed Freemason. Here on the left it's saying Brother Geoffrey was initiated in St George's Lodge in Western Australia in November 1994, passed in Hale Lodge 308 in December and raised in St George's in March 1995, etc. At the time, he was the head of the SAS. So he's a trained military soldier. But can Australia have people running this country that work in secret to do things against the Aussie in secret? Now here's the deal I've made, not so much a deal, but I've put it out there. The day that Michael Geoffrey hands me his paper resigning from the lodge is the day that I'll pull his charge. Now I say that quite specifically because if we want to what you call hang them out to dry, we're going to cause chaos. And that's exactly what the Masonic Lodge wants. They've got to get what you call order out of chaos. This is all meant to create chaos. Don't fall into that trap. Sit back and watch it and listen and deal with it properly. And don't get out there going, this person's guilty, guilty, guilty. Stop that rubbish. There's due process. And every person is permitted to have due process. Isn't that an interesting picture? We've got the Queen with Bob Hawke watching, purportedly signing off on the Australia Act. Now, did Bob Hawke, as the Prime Minister of Australia, have any power whatsoever to sign any of that type act? But in 1984 to 1986, he engineered it as the Fabian Socialist. Now, the agenda of Fabian Socialism is the abolition of all private ownership of land. They're about 6 weeks away of pulling that one off, if you Aussie don't know what you're dealing with. What's this player doing with all this information? Because he'd say, oh, we've got to make the government accountable because we'd be better. Did he tell you the Crown's gone out of Western Australia? Did he tell you that the Oath of Allegiance is removed from the Legal Practice Act in Victoria? Well, how can you be accountable if you're not telling the fact? Is that a fair comment? So is Tony Abbott up to his eyeballs in this concealment? Now, the concealment of treason, do you know what the penalty is? Life imprisonment under Section 80 of the Criminal Code Act 1995. It's life imprisonment. And neither can you come back into Parliament without breaching Section 44. It says, shall be incapable of sitting or of being chosen. Now, what does that mean in the Liberal Party? It means whoever sits on the panel to elect all the Liberal members who will go to be candidates in the next can be charged for treason. Are you aware of that? What does that do to the selection panel? Well, they're stepping back a bit. They're not so anxious to step forward when they know we've got the panel too, because the Act says incapable of being chosen. So if you're sitting in a selection panel, you're in the deal with treason. Don't think you're a backroom boy. What is this doing to the next election? It's just wiping it out. They can't hold it legally until you fix this issue. Or everyone who walks into that parliament is able to be charged the same day with treason. Are you aware of that? And so's the selection panel sitting in the back room who told you to go in there. Are you aware of that? Because if you don't exercise that right, you'll have none left. Are you aware of that? That's what I'm here for. To say to you Aussies, wake up. Wake up, Aussie, because someone's doing a number on you. I don't have to say who's doing a number on you, because that's what the trial's supposed to reveal. All I'm saying is, I've laid the charges, and at one point in the Melbourne Magistrates Court, when he's filing off one day, he said, the boss wants to see you. Didn't look up or nothing, he just said, the boss wants to see you, which means, oh, you're in trouble. I said, when? He said, now, meaning go through that door. So I got into this boardroom meeting with the boss, and he said this to me, you're charging some pretty important people in this country. I said, no, I'm not. I'm charging criminals involved in criminal activity. That was a fair answer. Because you just see the activity they're involved in. Now, the reason why they think they're getting away with it is they think, oh, the Aussie will trust us. The Aussie will say, she'll be right, mate. But it's not right, mate. Because someone's about to steal everything you thought you had, including the very land underneath what your house is built on. Abolition of private ownership of land is on the agenda. Tick that plebiscite box and you'll be locked out of a referendum. Don't think it's coming. If they didn't do the referendums when they should have, do you think they're going to give you one now? And why would you trust them? Anyone got a feeling of that happening? That's why we chucked the picture in. Anyone got a feeling of that happening? Now, we all know what's going to happen here. They either go on a truck and go wherever, or they go back into the paddock for the next lot of fleecing or whatever. Or alternatively, somebody opens the back gate and they all escape. Now, is that just what happened here? The back gate's now open now. Walk out of it. Because you walked into a trap, but it's not too late. I know you're going to flood me with some questions. So can we do it with some decorum and some decency, that you're actually handling the most difficult legal and constitutional problem that's ever hit this country? The lawyers have got nowhere to go because they're all concealing it. That's why they did this. Because they'd say, hang on, the Aussie will wake up, and the first time he wakes up, he'll say, we've got to get a lawyer. Yeah. The problem is all the lawyers have already done it. But they're still billing you with their oath of allegiance out. Can you work that out? How can a lawyer bill with the oath of allegiance out? And they've been doing it in Victoria since September 5, 2000. I'll open it up to the questions. I'll open it up to the question. Anybody got a question? Come up here, please. Just so. What do we do? Okay, the question is, what do we do? That's a very good question. I can only answer you from myself. I cannot tell people what to do because I'm giving legal advice and I'm not a lawyer. But neither's a lawyer. First I'll find, and by tomorrow, you can go to the post office, you can buy, they've got what's called a platinum post envelope, it'll take 3 kilograms. It's next day delivery, and in this case, if it's Friday, it'll be there on Monday. If your parliament's not prorogued over the weekend, make sure every Queensland senator gets notice that Section 44 will disqualify you because of what they've done in Victoria and what they have done in Western Australia. At that point, they have knowledge. Now, if they then dare to step in to be a candidate, please go to your district court and charge them. Is that a fair answer to your question? And this issue must be worked out in a courtroom. It can't be worked out on what you call the battlefield. Neither can